Good morning, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is David Okon. Thank you so much for your support, for being part of this family. We are looking at money in the United Kingdom, money given to people who need it. We are looking at the process of claiming. Today we are going to look at part 2 of the process. So let us go into it straight away. And part 2 answers as well as questions, something called descriptors. And part 2, you talk about mental, cognitive, and intellectual capabilities. And this section will cover pages 14 to 17 on the form. And if you are in the process of claiming this money from the government for sickness, we'll watch this video and the rest of the videos I produced. They are connected. If you watch this, watch the rest of the videos. They are connected. This is a continuation, and normally it takes time to do the form. And the advice there is for an individual claiming this benefit for yourself or for somebody else, and you're in the process of claiming this benefit. And you take time to answer each question, and also, if necessary, then take a break when you need to take a break. And it is normally extremely important to give the Department of Work and Pension all the information they are asking for, and to help them decide what support you need. There is a concept surrounding need, and in assessing through this form, the Department of Work and Pension will try to understand what you need. We'll look at number 11, learning how to do tasks, and which is actually an element of questioning. It's called descriptor, describing the kind of condition, medical condition, in this case mental component of sickness or disability. Also, this question is about how your ability to do tasks is affected by your mental health condition or cognitive impairment. For example, if you are learning disability difficulties, depression, anxiety, brain injuries, cognitive impairments after a stroke, and if you are probably have difficulty understanding language, for example, repetitive receptive dysphasia. And if you leave a comment below if you know anything to do with medical conditions, and also the terminology they are at. And thank you so much for your support, leaving a comment, watching these videos, sharing with family and friends, and also subscribing to this channel. I'm so grateful. And also clicking like and notification bell so that you don't miss anything. And let us continue on this process to get on with it and think about whether you tend to have problems focusing or concentrating. And we are dealing with a mental health or disability component of the application process, and you are being assessed in this process, whether by the Department of Work and Pension, whether you are sick enough or otherwise to be able to get help, the kind of help which is money for people who are sick within the universal credit regime. Universal credit regime being the money given to people who need it for one reason or another, because they are on low income. Generally, they are on low income anyway, because this benefit is means tested, as I said in the other materials. Watch this video and the rest of the video. And if you haven't subscribed before, subscribe to this channel. And thank you so much. And share with family and friends. And leave a comment below. Let me know your mindset and your opinions about this thing. And my take on the process of claiming help in the UK is that of it will involve is complex. complexity of accessing and also sustaining these benefit systems and the benefit thereof therewith. But I would say to people is that if you need help, by all means, try your best to get help. Go to gov.uk in the United Kingdom to access the government website. If you're in another country, take care to follow what is happening in the United Kingdom, because what happened in Britain happens across the globe because of globalization. I keep repeating this point over and over because it is necessary for people to remember the significance of what happened in Britain. Britain is the 6th richest country in the world, and it is inconceivable to perceive that there are people who are poor because of employment, and employment specifically because of the law of employment, which actually works against employee, which actually is citizen of this country, working in favor of investors, because Britain now has tilted toward the right of the political spectrum, and also are practicing the extreme version of capitalism, where the public sector is being shut down, the private sector is also being shut down, the small and medium businesses are being shut down either directly or indirectly by government policy or some certain crisis happening, such as COVID-19 or the cost of living crisis, which is affecting small and medium business now, but is part of the political agenda of the globe because of the idea of efficiency, where big corporations are considered to be efficient. Efficiency means making cuts. And the first cuts normally almost always the first cut for a private business to make is about the cut on employees rather, on people who work for the organization, because that is a very costly aspect of business. And with technology, artificial intelligence, and all the rest of it increasingly expanding, we are seeing big corporations especially accessing technology to replace human labor. That means from now into the future, especially if you're a young person and also perhaps adult, and it doesn't matter even if you are an elderly who is actually pensionable age, it is important to understand the idea involving your income and also things to do with debt and other expenses like rent, council tax, and all the rest of it, especially things which are essential: food, energy, healthcare, education, housing, and also taxation like council tax, because it is mandatory for you to pay council tax. So if you have no income, you could risk going into prison if you cannot explain to the authority effectively why you are not paying council tax. In the same way with housing, especially public housing, you could potentially lose your home, and this is something where if you're getting debt advice, it is their priority debts because of one reason or another. So when we are looking about money given to the British people, we are actually interested in the income aspect of life and livelihood in the United Kingdom. So if you are in the UK or abroad, pay attention to this, because this could be similar to a situation in your home. Take the matter of money seriously, whether you get it from charities, whether you get it from government, whether you get it from private individuals, whether you get it from family or friends. Money is important. If you are given means, you are actually in trouble financially. And private businesses do not give money to people unless the government supports them to do so, which is what the government is trying to do through the energy company, and also sometimes about food businesses like supermarket, and something. I would like to think government invest in maybe infrastructure and capital in terms of agriculture to support farmers. And this is reflected consistently in terms of pricing food, which is still affordable now, but increasingly is getting more and more expensive as the government shuts down more. The less the government help private companies, the more likely they are to shut down, and the more they shut down, the less access the majority of the population will will actually get will access services such as farm, agriculture, food, energy, and water, and all the rest of it. and we have repeated this point because they are central to this program. And this program was actually inspired by the cost of living crisis, and now we are getting into the detailed aspect of the money, including income, and also income from employment or self-employment, where I said the government of the United Kingdom needs to help small and medium businesses to implement a credible minimum wage or working working whatever and living wage. That's what I'm looking for, because you have minimum wage and living wage, but they are irrelevant, because what is relevant is the level of support given in terms of employment and the remuneration there. And whenever the government support these aspects to increase the level of benefits, which are what I'm talking about now, something called benefit in the United Kingdom. Everyone in the UK knows about benefit. It is despised by almost everyone, but increasingly people need to be aware in terms of pension. If the government doesn't increase the level of pension, which is a form of benefit, then people will retire into poverty consistently, because this is now lacking. And if you are about to retire, it is your responsibility to claim pension. I think the law should change immediately. If somebody have been working and they are qualified for state pension, also the state pension need to be changed. If you work for one day, or if you pay your national insurance for a day, you should get the full pension. At the moment, you have to work in the UK for 35 years. You have to work for 35 years to get the full state pension, but that is a problem enough. And more importantly, the level of pension is extremely low. It has to be increased, in my opinion, to the equivalent of £20,000 per annum. And this is regardless of your saving, and because it is non-means tested. And in my opinion, if you are a multimillionaire, be culturally astute, so as to collect your pencil if you want to collect it, and give it back to the community, to the community, otherwise statutory bodies or non-statutory bodies like charitable or non-profit organization. Be good to yourself and be good to your community. Make your parents proud of your humanity. Be humane, because if you are a multimillionaire, you are still getting the state pension. That is okay, because that is what the law says. And I would wish that the whole system would change, with the result that rich people should continue to pay their national insurance contribution. But when it comes to pension, unless they need it, the government should be so nice to actually set a law that we are trying to be very nice to you wealthy people, and we are also trying to be very nice to the British people, so that the money now to be given to you, you are really, really rich, and you are so learned, you know how to use your money. You don't waste your money. You have been very good people, multimillionaires and entrepreneurs, and you have been very nice. So let us, distribute your tax money to the rest of the population, including private pension. I mean, if you have a private pension, you don't need it. You give it away to charities which actually specifically provide housing, provide healthcare support, financial support, and practical support, like food banks. We have food banks in the United Kingdom. Food banks should respectfully get fresh product, healthy product from the farm, which I believe are actually subsidized by the UK government. My information now tells me that farmers are throwing food away to rot. Almost 50% of what they produce is thrown away, so they have to artificially keep the price of goods, of food artificially. This is evil, and I'm not saying they are evil intentionally or recklessly. I think they are just uneducated culturally. They think they're doing the right thing. I would assume they're doing the right thing, because the government is not really providing proper incentive. Because I talk about the government, because the government runs the country, and increasingly with the people we elect into power are running Britain with the super rich multimillionaires and entrepreneurs, because rule, or actually running the country, is associated with power. Whoever has power contributes significantly. a ruler of the country. That is what the situation is like. If you own a multi-million, a multi-billion, a multi-trillion project, big corporation, you are automatically a governor. You are automatically an executive. You are automatically having power now to hold sway over the British people or the people of your country. And this is something I've been trying to explain consistently. People need to be aware about the relationship between those in power and those out of power, the relationship between those who work for a living as a necessity and those who don't need to work for a living, like multimillionaires and multimillionaires. If you cannot buy a house outright, you need to work for a living to pay rent, to pay your mortgage. I have explained what a mortgage is. If you're not in the UK or in another country or in Africa, a mortgage is a credit you borrow to buy your home, which is actually credit for the purpose for which is to provide necessity, which is housing. And I have already expressed opinion that it is really important for the United Kingdom government and the people who are multimillionaires and multimillionaires to work together, because they are the ones who have all the wealth. The British people do not have wealth at all. They live from hand to mouth. I mean, there are people, if they don't get their salaries within a month, they are going to go into financial crisis. And this is increasingly being the case for the majority of British people, and to my mind and also to my understanding, every country of the world is experiencing this because of capitalism, which practices the growth of wealth and the generating of power at the expense of the principle and the values associated with equality. The inequalities associated with the system is the number one problem because of the disruption in society in terms of development, in terms of accessing wealth and health and opportunities. They are creating instability in the community. It's a security risk. It's a cultural failure in terms of people, but also in terms of power. In the case of the government, because the government itself is a personality, it's a legal personality, which are also the big corporations, which are private, they are legal personalities, which should actually help these people culturally and also in terms of development to moderate their activity, creating wealth and growing the economy and building infrastructure, doing research. That is a good thing. Now, when it comes to inequality, they should pay attention to the human factor of society, which is I refer to as the cultural economy. Cultural economy means respecting yourself, respecting other people in terms of value, because if you value something, you respect. So even you show respect is actually evidence of valuation. Your value system, what you believe in, what you value, what is actually important. And in my opinion, in everything we do, and as much as we value everything, because life is holistic, we value everything, but humanity is a priority. That is a consistent message I will continue to put across every time. It doesn't matter what I'm talking about, I will talk about this because to my mind, it is a basis of peaceful building and peaceful relations. And if we achieve peace, we are going to do very well because technology is providing a lot of promises. Young people and adults are now desperate. There are an increase in illness, diseases, at a time when we have technology and science, and this is ridiculous. As a society, we need to stop and pay attention what is going on in our society. Why are we sick? A lot of anxiety, a lot of mental illness. That's what I'm talking about now. I'm talking about money, but this money, by policy and process, the government has set it to help people who need help. Let us go back to looking at these cognitive impairments. For example, after a stroke, difficulty understanding language, for example, receptive dysphasia, liver harm below, if you know this thing. If you think about whether you tend to have problems focusing or concentrating, if you get anxiety, and you have learned, you have to learn how to do something new. And therefore, we are continuing with this process, watching. If you watch the rest of the video and watching this, I have said there are questions which actually inform something called descriptors. Descriptors come from the adjective to describing I think the word describe is a verb or something. If you know English, leave a comment below. If you know English grammar, leave a comment below even more. I think the word to describe, it means actually is classed as a verb. And also adjective it's like if you are told you're short, you're feeling sick, you're feeling bad, those are adjectives. And descriptors actually are words to describe. You use those words to describe how you're feeling, and therefore you can be asked, can you learn how to do an everyday task such as setting an alarm clock? And if you have an alarm clock, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you can set an alarm clock, or if you cannot set an alarm clock, and if you can learn how to do it, this is more to do with learning, which is actually learning ability or disability, which lead to whether or not, which lead to into limited capability for work related activity, or otherwise work related activity, limited capability for work rather. And like I've explained in the other videos, you can learn how to do an everyday task. The example is used as setting an alarm clock. If the answer is no, yes, or it varies, these are optional answers. Then the department of work, when you tell them, will decide what to do with those answers. And normally people get embarrassed. But the encouragement here is you don't feel embarrassed to take no. And because sometimes people are actually suffering. If you say, are you suffering? Then they say, oh, I'm not suffering, I'm okay. If you are claiming benefit, tell the truth, and don't be embarrassed, and take the right box, which is no. I cannot do this. For example, if you would be confused by the switches, and you wouldn't be able to work on alarm clock on your own, even if someone showed you how to do it the day before, because you forget things very quickly. And this is really specific material. There are some generalization, but they are extremely, I'm just trying to draw generalization from it so that people kind of like understand it more coherently. So for example, you wouldn't be able to cope if you had to get up at a different time one day and needed to change the time of your alarm. And you wouldn't be able to cope if you had to get up at a different time one day. You talk about consistent behavior, and which is disrupted by whether or not you are sick. This isn't just about setting an alarm clock. It's about doing an doing any basic task. The key word is something basic as a task. And think about, for example, learning how to turn on a television and then change the channel using your remote control. Day-to-day work, if you watch television, if you don't watch television, or if you are in the kitchen, imagine yourself in the bedroom, turning, like for example, turning on the heating or hot water. If you are in the bathroom or in the kitchen, hot water or heater. If you live in Europe or Asia, if you live in the region where temperature can really be so cold, such as during winter, you will need something called heater, and something which may not happen mostly in part of Africa or other part of the tropics, which is very, very warm most of the time. And although if I were in Africa, in some parts of Africa where it rains, I will definitely get some heater into my home, because it can get very cold in parts of Africa as well, especially if it is rainy season. And depending which area of Africa, if it doesn't shine, if it's always raining, it gets cold, and it's not an offense to put heater into your home if you have some money. So if you cannot actually operate heater, to turn it even on, not just operating, it's very specific. It's just turning on the heating. Some people are unable to turn on the heating system, or even turn on the hot water in your home, and it is indicative that they are very sick in terms of their mental capability. So the question would ask, For example, can you learn how to do a more complicated task, such as using a washing machine? A more complicated task is telling, because if you can learn, we talk about learning disability or ability to learn how to do a more complex task, such as using a washing machine. This is a descriptive question which you answer either no, yes, or invalid. If you don't, then it means you are very, very sick. If yes, it means you are sick but not sick enough. For purposes of the Department of Work and Pension processing your benefit. So if you invalid, it means your condition fluctuates. Sometimes it is no, sometimes it is yes, which means sometimes you are very, very sick. You struggle to learn basic things, or even learning complicated things. And it varies sometimes when you are worse off, if you are better off, your condition actually shifts, it fluctuates. This isn't just about using a washing machine, it's about any more complex task. Think about, for example, learning how to use a new computer for things like sending or receiving emails. The more complex a task you are able to attempt, the less likely you are going to get benefit, because you are not sick enough. This is what the aim of this questioning. And I'm making a cup of tea for someone, so filling a kettle, putting tea bags in a teapot, pouring it into a cup, or then adding milk and sugar. And it's some specific. It's a day-to-day activity. If you can do it, if you cannot do it in terms of learning, and or if you can't do it, can you learn how to do it? This is actually the idea behind this exercise, to give you an idea what happens when you are actually supposed to get income because you are sick. It is government policy, and you need to remember that. And leave a comment below if you think this government policy is good or not very good, or let me know your opinion. If you like things to do with with policy, if you don't enjoy things to do with policy, I said before that if you are a citizen of a modern society, you should be an expert on government. You should be an expert on policy, even if you didn't go to school, because you can go and spend a lot of time on online or reading websites, learning things. There are free trainings on YouTube, on other social media, especially YouTube, but also on the internet. You get the correct website, you can spend a lot of time learning. And I'm not asking you to have it done live. I'm always reminding you that in life, especially modern life, you are supposed to take responsibility, even if you're a child. I mean, your child's life is supposed to be playing, going to school. After school, you play, and after homework, you play. After food, you play a little. You bathe, and you go back. You go into bed to sleep, and you wake up. You play a little. You have breakfast, and the routine goes on. But I would suggest that if you're a young person or even a child, begin to take more responsibility, because there are a lot of challenges to the family. You may find yourself not with your parent, with maybe strangers who decide to try to look after you because your family can no longer look after you. There are a lot of problems within the family, and this is something children should learn. And I'm not saying children shouldn't be children, but if you are looking at a government which is bailing out on the British people and on the people of the world, and then the bailing out could actually, because this is a cultural failure, you see, the fish rot from the top, from the head, and the government is rotting because of cultural failure, then the rest of the fishes will rot. Eventually, your parents are going to be culturally corrupt, and because of lack of education. And this is what happened in the United Kingdom and across the globe. And unless we can change and begin to respect ourselves and respect other people, children are killing children, adults are killing adults, and a lot of chaos happening in our society because we have failed to learn our culture. And this I have actually spoken about, and I leave a comment below what you think about what I have been saying. Let us go back to this dispensing. Let us explain about learning tasks. We talk about learning because we are trying to actually see our mental capability of trade. So how do we learn if we don't know something? If we have difficulty learning, then that is also part of our mental capability, because we use our brain to think, and we use our brain to learn as well. So you should explain the box if there is anything that you couldn't learn to do or struggle with because you find it difficult. For example, using a dishwasher. A dishwasher, if you live in a developed world, you probably know it more than if you live in Africa. Dishwasher is a washer of dish. Dish is something you use for cooking and for eating in the kitchen mainly. The dishwashers are always often, actually not always, often installed in the kitchen, but it can be also in storage near the kitchen or outside if you're in Africa, because there is a lot of land in Africa at the moment, and depending in Africa where you are, if you're in the village, there is the vastness of the land. Africa is probably the second biggest continent in the world, if I'm correct, probably the biggest. And in terms of size and the square area and the square miles or whatever, I'm so excited and having to exercise this opportunity. And if you need to practice and repeat tasks regularly to learn them, I'm back to discussing these scenarios. If you need to practice and repeat tasks regularly to learn them, and how long it will take you. And this is the mindset of the Department of Work and Pension. If you're a very sick person, if you have a disability, a mental illness, or whatever sickness, you are actually advised by the government, the UK government, to practice the doing tasks. And if you need to practice and repeat tasks regularly to learn them, and how long it will take you, because this because you see this can only exist in the minds of the UK government. And the below, you think this makes sense, because you are a sick person, and the government says the government is trying to give you financial support because you're a sick person. I don't know how money is going to help somebody who is sick. And but you could help somebody who is not sick in the same way as helping somebody who is sick. But the government argument for giving benefit is that people who work should not get benefit. People who are capable of working should not get benefit. The presumption of the government is that there is a lot of work out there which is waiting for anyone who wants to work, and that is not true, because there are jobs which are actually horrible, which no human being should really do in the modern world. And because people who are in the government are out of touch with what's happening at the grassroots. That's why I say people at the grassroots should be the ones talking to the government directly through their MP or other local mechanisms, so that the people here, the government hear directly from the people, their experience, how much money they need to be paid in terms of minimum wage. The government should support minimum wage, and they should actually support the benefit system. How much benefit the people need, they should be the one telling the government. The government shouldn't be the one telling the people, because the government doesn't know. Most people in government are multimillionaires, and probably some of them could be multimillionaires if we start getting billionaires in the UK. We are billionaire in America. Donald Trump, who is now running to be former president of America, is worth about $3 billion US dollar. And US dollar is to the pound is, I think, £1 $24 to every pound, which is about the same. Because the pound has really lost its value. And so, if you hear of a billionaire in America, is similar to a billionaire in the United Kingdom. And there are politicians who are billionaires who are in the House of Lords. I think Lord Sugar is actually multi-billionaire, if I'm correct. And leave a comment below if you know how the net worth of Lord Sugar used to be a footballer. I think he used to call himself Alan Sugar. Definitely he was a football team boss. As he was, I think he has now retired. He was Sir Haaland. Now he is Lord Sugar from the Apprenticeship UK. I think that man is very rich. If he's not a billionaire, he's a politician. And so we have politicians who are millionaires and multi-billionaires. some of them must have known poverty if they were in the football sport and before becoming rich. A lot of politicians were once poor, but memory can be lost if you become rich suddenly. If somebody is watching this video and they are millionaires and they used to be ordinary citizens, they are probably already forgotten about poverty, such that they are out of touch with the ordinary people, and in which case they should now create a system where ordinary people can communicate directly or indirectly with politicians, locally and nationally, to tell them how much benefit they need, and also to tell them why the government should build them housing, and why the government should not charge council tax to people who are on minimum or national living wage, minimum wage or national living wage, national minimum or national living wage, whichever you talk about, the same. But what is important is the level of benefit being paid, and also the accessibility and also the sustainability of the same. And these are the things I've been repeating. Let's go back to look at this specific. And we're looking at medication, whether medication you're taking has affected your ability to learn new tasks. Also try under these circumstances to compare what it was like before you started taking the medication. They want evidence. The Department of Health want evidence. So they want to inquisition sick people to make sure they actually tell the truth. It is like you are visiting a complicated level of a panel of inquiry of high level judges and also experts who are actually inquisitioning people who are really ordinary citizens of this country. I have a feeling that looking at this material, I feel government is totally out of touch, and with the result, they are actually persecuting the British people inadvertently or advertently. And if you can know, what do you think the British government is doing to the British people who are out of power? Increasingly, the majority of the British people being out of power, on low pay, on employment, working for a living as of necessity. These are people who are ordinary, who are actually the majority of the people of this country. If they are getting a fair deal, I thought they are not. I think they are actually being excluded from the national cake. This is repeated across the globe. If you don't live in the UK, if you live somewhere else, let me know how you're doing with your government, your access to your member of parliament, how your understanding about democracy. Let me know. And let's go back to looking at this, and can help and stop from time to time to make commentary whether you can focus on tasks. If you have problems with your short-term memory, if you struggle with short-term memory, if you have good and bad days, and what it is like for you on different days, and you should be an expert on explaining your life, I think, and you have to really do this over and over, whether you will be able to learn more than one new task in a day. And if you don't speak English, for goodness sake, God forbid, you will suffer poverty, because you are more likely not going to get this money at all from the government. And whether you will be able to learn more than one new task in a day, and how many tasks do you learn every day? And you have to keep a record of this, I would say. And how many tasks do you learn? Is it 2, 3, 4? I don't know. I wouldn't know. And how many tasks did I learn today? I don't know. And I didn't even know what a task means. And especially if your English is as mine, coming from Africa, and I've spoken to so many British people who are English people who are born in this country. They understand English in a normal way, but I don't believe this material is for ordinary people. That's why they normally have to go to get out from professional. I'm a professional advisor. Even by my standard, I struggle with this material. How much more are going to be ordinary people? Actually, this is my field of work, and still I struggle to be coherent to explain this situation to the people of the world. And if you're watching, if you comment below, let me know. As consider also going back to the material I'm looking at, visit gov.uk and the other website, public website from Citizen Advice. They are actually publicly available. You can look at it, read it yourself, and if you go online on the internet, you will get information about many things. Universal credit, they may direct you to one area or another. Most likely, they are going to direct you to either government website or they will direct you to Citizen Advice public website. We talk about the same thing. You cannot miss this information online, and they are there for the public to access. And I'm using it as a guide, but because I already know about this, because I've been giving a lot of advice on benefit. As an advisor, I give advice on all pretty much everything, but main housing, benefit, and employment. Also employment, not so much. But I've been doing training, employment employment law training recently. So we'll be talking about employment because I can explain this information. It doesn't matter where I get it from, online, or if I borrow a book, I go to the library, and access on internet or whatever. It is actually explainable. But I tell you, these things is so complicated that even advisors try to avoid giving advice on benefit, because something like limitless capability for work-related activities can only come from the mind of some I don't know what kind of mind can produce something like that. It's like visiting a witch doctor, which will actually inquisition you to the bones, to the bare bones. You don't want to know how many bones do you have in your skin. If you visit a witch doctor, you have to explain that, otherwise you will suffer. And it's this kind of situation resemble a situation where you are being almost inquisition, being interrogated by the government. Because you're going to get 40 with £400 is a lot of money in the mind of the government, and I mean, I don't know how many people are sick enough to get benefit, because so many people are not sick enough to get benefit in the first place. Even if it doesn't matter how sick they are. In practice, people don't actually get benefit unless they really do a lot of work, which they cannot do unless a professional helps them. The lucky few being helped by a professional to do mandatory consideration, which is actually challenging the decision of the Department of Work and Pension, and also something called appealing to the tribunal or to some court, and this is to challenge the decision of the Department of Work and Pension. And a lot of the time, 70%, I think more than 70% of the cases failing with the Department of Work and Pension is actually overturned in favor of the claimants, which means the claimants get the court orders the Department of Work and Pension to make this payment, and then this payment, and then made. But only a minority of cases go up to the court, because it is stressful. It's so complicated. Imagine you're a sick person. Imagine you cannot access the service of a professional advisor, because professional advisors now are facing a lot of resource limitation. We lack resources everywhere you go, within the statutory body, within the non-statutory body. There are no resources, and there's no peace for the wicked. And so everybody suffers. If you work, you support. And if we have a lot of passionate people who are really, they focus on helping people, but they are limited, significantly limited, because of lack of resources. We don't have resources within the sector, the different sectors. We don't have resources with the government sector. We don't have resources within the churches. We don't have resources in the family, community. Wherever you go, we try to get help. There is no peace for the wicked, and this is actually a terrible situation, because the government has failed to understand the idea of humanity. The idea of all the government seem to think about is money and power and wealth, concentrating wealth in the hands of the few, taking this wealth away from the hands of the many. Now let's go back to this. We are trying to figure out to see how the Department of Work and Pension give points for question 11. Question 11 is a big deal. The Department of Work and Pension will check which of these descriptors matches your answer. If you meet description 11A, you will get limited capability for work-related activity. If you meet one of the other descriptors, the part of work and pension will add up your points from the whole form to decide if you can get limited capability for work. This is the process. I've been mentioning this. Watch this video and the other videos. Thank you so much. Continue watching. Looking at the description 11A, cannot learn how to complete a simple task such as setting an alarm clock, you get 15 points. Number B, cannot learn anything beyond a simple task such as setting an alarm clock, you get 9 points. Number C, cannot learn anything beyond a moderately complex task such as the steps involved in operating a washing machine to clean clothes. You get 6 points. So the more complex the task, the less point you get if you struggle to do it. And if it is very simple, if the task is really, really simple and you cannot do it, you get more points and more money. More money means you get limited capability for work-related activity. If E, none of the above applies, you get 0. So let's look at question number 12. Question 12 is awareness of hazards or danger. This question is about how your mental health or cognitive impairment affects your awareness of hazards or danger. For example, you might be less aware of danger because of side effects of medication, a mental health condition like depression or psychosis, a neurological condition like epilepsy, a brain injury, a learning disability. You can actually think about things like whether you understand the risk in everyday tasks like boiling water and using sharp objects, whether you can stay safe sometimes, but sometimes have accidents. Think about why they happen, such as if you have cut yourself on a sharp object or burn yourself in the kitchen or with an iron. Whether you know how to avoid danger. For example, you don't worry about traffic or crossing roads. That means you are living your life dangerously. If you have if ever fallen or injured yourself in the street, think about how it affected you afterwards, such as whether you are hurt, whether you hurt yourself, and now avoid certain streets. And the question would be something resembling: do you need supervision or someone to stay with you for most of the time to stay safe? If the answer is no, yes, or it varies, and you tell that to the Department of Work and Pension for them to determine. And if you don't have anyone to supervise you, you could still put down why you are at risk. Don't feel embarrassed about saying yes. If you need someone with you, it's important to say this. It is important to tell the Department of Work and Pension more about explaining your situation in the box, what to explain about awareness of danger. So as you explain about awareness of danger, you should explain in the box and give example if you are at risk of hurting yourself. For example, you don't always notice when something is dangerous because of depression or anxiety. If you sometimes act on impulse or only realize how dangerous it was afterwards, and you are not proactive in this sense. For example, you are bipolar and take risks when you are on a high. If you forgot to be careful, behave irrationally, or take sudden risks in an unpredictable way, and if you find it hard to concentrate, for example, because of your medication, you can always explain these things to the Department of Work and Pension. So let us look at how the Department of Work and Pension will give points to question 12. The Department of Work and Pension will check which of these descriptions matches your answer. If you meet description 12A, you will get limited capability for work-related activity. If you meet one of the other descriptions, the Department of Work and Pension will add up your points from the whole form to decide if you can get limited capability for work. Let us look at the descriptors one by one. Number 12A, reduce awareness of everyday hazard leads to a significant risk of one injury to self or others. or 2. Damage to property or possession such that the claimant requires supervision for the majority of the time to maintain safety there, you get 15 points. And B, reduce awareness of everyday hazard leading to a significant risk over 1. Injury to self or others, or 2. Damage to property or possession such that the claimant frequently requires supervision to maintain safety. There you get also 9 points. Reduce awareness of everyday hazard leading to significant risk of 1. Injury to self or others, or 2. Damage to property or possession such that the claimant occasionally requires supervision to maintain safety. You get 6 points. D, none of the above, you get 0 points. Thank you. Continue watching. Let us look at question number 13, starting and finishing a task. This question is about whether you can plan, organize, and complete at least 2 routine tasks on one after the other consistently. The Department of Work and Pension aren't asking you about any physical problems in this question. They want to know whether you have a mental health condition that affects your ability to start and finish routine tasks. Can you manage to plan, start, and finish daily tasks? If the answer is never, sometimes it varies. Tell the Department of Work and Pension accordingly. Routine tasks are things including showering, dressing, collecting prescription, preparing a basic meal, ironing clothes, paying a bill, making appointments. Think about whether you could complete 2 of these tasks, one after the other. For example, before you leave the house to go to an appointment. So if you are actually normal, you are consistent, you are sequential. For example, imagine you are making a cup of tea and the phone rings. Would you be able to stop making the tea, answer the phone, and then finish making the tea after the phone call? Think about whether you would be able to do these things and other routine tasks repeatedly during the same day. Continue watching. So what to explain about starting and finishing tasks? It is important to tell the Department of Work and Pension more by explaining your situation in the box. It is important to explain whether your condition makes it hard for you to concentrate. You need to be reminded or encouraged, whether you get confused, whether you get distracted, whether you feel anxious or overwhelmed, or you forget what you are doing, whether your medication affects how you complete tasks, and your condition makes you lack motivation, your condition makes you lack energy, or you get tired, you have good days and bad days. Continue watching. Let us see how the Department of Work and Pension give points for question 13. The Department of Work and Pension will check which of these descriptions matches your answer. If you meet the description of 13A, you will get limited coverage for work-related activity. If you meet one of the other descriptions, the Department of Work and Pension will add up your points from the whole form to decide if you can get limited coverage for work. Looking at the description 13A, you cannot, due to impaired mental function, reliably initiate or complete at least 2 sequential personal actions. You get 15 points. Number B, you cannot, due to impaired mental function, reliably initiate or complete at least 2 sequential personal actions for the majority of the time. You get 9 points. C, frequently cannot, due to impaired mental function, reliably initiate or complete at least 2 sequential personal actions. Number 6, D, none of the above apply, and you get 0 points. Question 14 involves coping with changes. This question is about what happens and how you feel if your routine or plans change. Can you cope with small changes to your routine if you know about them before they happen? No, yes, it varies. Think about having to eat lunch at a different time from usual, or a planned bus diversion which takes you on a different route when you're going home. Don't feel embarrassed if you have to take no. For example, if you can't deal with change at all, even if you are warned about the change. Also say when change makes you withdraw and refuse help. Also, if change affects your behavior, if change stops you from being your normal self afterwards. For example, you need someone to calm you down, and it affects you all day. You can answer some of these questions. Can you cope with small changes to your routine? If they are unexpected, no, yes, and it varies. And think about your bus or train being 15 minutes late, or a friend or a carer coming to your house earlier or later than planned. Don't feel embarrassed if you have to take no. For example, if it takes a lot of planning and mental preparation to get ready for something, and you find it hard to cope if it gets cancelled. So let us see what to explain about coping with changes. It is important to tell the Department of Marketing Pencil more about explaining your situation in the box. You should explain things like whether you have problems coping with planned changes to your day. So you should also explain whether your medication affects how you cope, whether you can't cope with sudden changes, whether your medication affects you, how you cope with change, how you cope with change. Use examples if you can, how your day would be affected if your routine changed. For example, whether you would be able to do what you had planned, how often you would be affected by change. In this way, anything you avoid doing because of potential problems, for example, you avoid meeting friends for a meal because you would be upset if you couldn't sit in a window seat. So how you get question for question number 4, how you get points for question number 4 by the Department of Marketing Pencil. The Department of Marketing Pencil will check which of these descriptions matches your answer. If you meet description 14A, you will get limited capability for work-related activity. If you meet one of the other descriptions, the Department of Work and Pencil will add up your points from the whole form to decide if you can get limited capability for work. So in the description 14A, you cannot cope with any change to the extent that day-to-day life cannot be managed, and you get 15 points. Number B, cannot cope with minor changes, minor planned changes such as a pre-arranged change to the routine, time, a schedule for a lunch break. To the extent that on the overall day-to-day life is made significantly more difficult, you get 9 points. Number C, you cannot cope with minor and planned change such as the timing of an appointment on the day it is due to occur, to the extent that overall day-to-day life is made significantly more difficult, you get 6 points. If none of the above apply, you get 0 points. Let us look at number 15, going out. This question is about whether you can cope mentally or emotionally with going out. For example, if you have anxiety, panic attacks, or agoraphobia. Good morning, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is David Okon. Thank you so much for your support, for being part of this family. We are looking at money in the United Kingdom, money given to people who need it. We are looking at the process of claiming. Today we are going to look at part 2 of the process, so let us go into it straight away, and part 2 answers as well as questions, something called descriptors, and part 2 you talk about mental, cognitive, and intellectual capabilities, and this section will cover pages 14 to 17 on the form. And if you are in the process of claiming this money from the government for sickness, we'll watch this video and the rest of the videos I have produced. They are connected. If you watch this, watch the rest of the videos. They are connected. This is a continuation, and normally it takes time to do the form, and the advice there is for an individual claiming this benefit for yourself or for somebody else, and you're in the process of claiming this benefit, and you take time to answer each question, and also, if necessary, then take a break when you need to take a break, and it is normally extremely important to give the Department of Work and Pension all the information they are asking for, and to help.
Well,